My daughter and I, we like to go shooting. And even when she was 12, she said, Papa, you know, I really like shooting. I said, why is that? She goes, it's like meditation. I said, why do you say that? She goes, well, if you don't concentrate, you don't achieve the target. Okay. So very young, she realized that shooting, yeah, it's a skill, but it's also mental training.
Welcome.
What up?
To the Habits of the Few.
What we got for them?
Where we discuss habits, rituals, and mindset tactics that you can use to reach your version of success. Yeah. And now, here's your host, Mona Bolfi.
All right, everybody, we are live, and we have Eric and Krystal on the call. I will say this is the first time we've had multiple people at the same time on this podcast. Very excited to hear that. And I'm very excited, Krystal, to have you on the call because I have been an admirer of your father for 3 decades, I feel like, almost. Since I got into training, was introduced to Jared Leeper, who was introduced me to Eric, and then it just kind of spiraled out of control. I mean, I watched some of his videos that he does. He had some, what do you call them? Like keynotes, just to get like motivated. I'm like, all right, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. Come on, Charles, let's go. You know,
it's certainly be motivating.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, he was an incredible man. And I know we're going to dive deep into that conversation, but I just want to ask you, this is a question that it's been in my mind since we found out about this call, Krystal. How was it like growing up with such a, I don't want to say the word masculine because that word has just been destroyed, but a powerful, kind, intelligent human being as a father, and being able to see through the eyes of, you know, third person, obviously, it just seems like he is how I want to raise my girls, because I have all girls. I have three daughters, and you know, 2 of them are going to be going into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here next year. And I'm just, it's so cool to be able to see that. So my question is to you, was it as amazing as it looked, or were there times where you're just like, man, Dad, just leave me alone. I just want to chill and be on Snapchat?
That's such a hard question to answer. I feel like any relationship, there's pros or cons to it. I mean, I'm so grateful for that experience, just him as a parent, especially when it's come to like how I approach sports, school, anything like that. I guess the only downside is sometimes it did feel so intense because he was so used to such a competitive level that I felt that I couldn't even get close. And I guess he was so amazing to be around, but just because of that, I felt so overwhelmed a lot of the time, especially with the people he introduced me to, because then I would find out what they did and I would just be like a little kid, but I'd so badly want to be at that level and understand everything they were talking about, which in reality, you just can't do it that age, or even probably to this age, I wouldn't be able to keep up with my dad.
Was it like a combination of just inspiration and maybe a little bit of overwhelm? Because it sounds like you were inspired a little bit.
Oh, most definitely. And especially like my father was someone you would want to impress. Yeah. And he would always reward, for lack of a better word, reward behavior if he knew that it was coming out of like hard work more than anything else. Like if I just did something and I was just good at it, I wouldn't get the same kind of response or praise if I wasn't good at it before, or if I had just worked my ass off and then got to where it was actually impressive or that kind of stuff. So that has definitely pushed me in a lot of other areas, because I don't think praise is absolutely necessary, nor do I think it's always warranted. So I think there's a lot more value out of working, then the reward comes later. I guess.
So
And that's
was
something
the reward like, I guess, was the reward did he reward based on effort?
most definitely. And just, he could always detect my attitude towards
Yeah.
things. And I think this definitely tied in with his career as well, because I know that, so my dad had a grateful log, and then he made me have one. And I know that a couple of his athletes, also had one. So I think that made me reflect on my attitude in other ways. So I think just kind of the reward from him was just how he perceived me, and if I was approaching things with the right attitude. Because if I didn't, he would notice straight away.
Yeah, I find that interesting. And also because I've heard things from the perspective of like Eric's, being a strength coach. Like I've heard stories from, people that have been close to him where he has been beyond generous, and like the humility behind his actions, and just the fact that he just wants to see people succeed. It's so funny. Like, the formula is like, you want to make $1 million? Well, solve 1 million problems or help 1 million people. And it's like, he truly, for me, he exemplified what I truly believe in, which is the law of reciprocity. And I just, it's so cool to see. But Eric, I was curious to know, like, your perspective as a strength coach. You gave me a story where he was, you guys were working a lot together, and the things that he was able to help you throughout your career, as a strength coach, but also as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Would you mind just kind of sharing a little bit more about that? Eric, you're muted, brother. I know it's late. Come on, old man.
I do it all the time, so it's okay.
Hang on, let's see here. Yeah, you muted yourself, so I cannot unmute you. This is why we record. This is okay.
It's okay.
That's all right. Do you see on your screen a little mic button?
Do you hear me
There
now?
we go. What's up, senor?
Okay. All right. Sorry.
All right.
I had to change because the other one cut off. Okay.
You're fine.
So so one of the things that we had when we were in seminars is that we always have supper after that. So one night he just said, "Let's go for supper." He knew that I wanted to open a gym, and I wanted to have maybe an hour talk with him, and that's it, because I knew all the other coaches wanted to talk to him. So I said, I just need an hour of your time, so let's go eat. All right, so we went to eat. So we stayed there more than 2 hours, and he gave me everything. But the thing is that we were in it was a chicken and fries place, very ordinary, but we had paper towels for your to put your dish on. Okay, so all the notes were on that, but I'm sure Krystal, you know how he writes, so it's it was I had to
Chicken scratch.
I knew everything that was written in there, but if I was show it to you, it was a dirty plate and wouldn't look nice. But I still have that paper. But everything that he told me on that night, I did. And that's why now I'm working. I just opened up my dojo as well. So it's it's growing and it's growing. I'm a bit more on the patient side. He wasn't, but we reach a certain point. But it's it was really, really helpful for everything I did, because that's mostly my second gym. I had one with him. It was called the Poliquin Performance Center in Montreal, a while back. And he also showed us a lot of business sense with the everything that has to go with the gym, the equipment, how to do packages, and everything that is related to business with gyms and all that. And I still use what he showed me today. And I think it's if not more than 90% of what I'm doing now is because of what everything he showed me before. So it was really helpful. And like when I do the internships with my students, I do the exact same thing. That's what I want to share, because that's how it changed, like how I see business, how I'm gonna deal with clients as well. Because every detail that I do with the evaluation, I learned from him. Like I've reached out to all the other coaches, and I've learned from many coaches, but like I can honestly say that I run with most of the things that he showed me before. So it's still valuable today. And when I do internships, that's what I share with my students.
That's great. I want to ask you both this question. It just popped in my head. You know, being in the space that you are and being who you are and who you were raised by, what's your take on I'm trying to make something very generic, very specific. The industry as a whole, the health and fitness, the strength community. You know, I in another life, I was in the advertising space for 2 decades. It's what I did. And I worked with a lot of people, and some of the people that I worked with were, you know, personal trainers and gym owners and things like that. Now we live in a world where the health and fitness community is incredibly saturated with, you know, showcasing a physique that dictates whether or not you will be generating business and creating a brand. And it's almost like the reversal. Whereas how I was raised and what I've seen and what you guys have seen is that you develop the skill, you have the knowledge, you develop the expertise, and you put in the hours, you put in the time, and you really refine that. And yet people are almost dissuaded from that versus the outside of like maybe like the elite athletes, right? You know, like the what is it? The Sean, the strongman, I forget his name, Sean, Brian Shaw, like the Brian Shaws of the world, Hafthor Bjornsson of the world, you know, Eddie Hall, things like that, where they would hire someone with a tremendous amount of expertise and knowledge, like a Charles Poliquin, like a Coach Eric, you know what I'm saying? And, but unfortunately, because of social media, because of where everything's been heading, especially in a platform like TikTok, where it's microdosing information, and most of that information, it's just like, hey, I'm going to rub my abs and I'm going to show you how to make a 6-pack. And, you know, without understanding that, well, this guy may be on anabolics and he has no knowledge, has no efficacy, no experience whatsoever. So how does that, I guess, do you feel like it's been tarnished? Do you feel like it's been, it's evolved into something that it shouldn't be? Or do you think obviously there's still a place for the top guys like yourself, but do you feel that because of the industry of where it is today, it is almost soiled the good name of really what health and fitness is, in a sense? Mm-hmm. Who wants to go first?
Yeah. Go, Krystal. Go, Krystal.
I can go first.
Then, I honestly don't like where it's going.
Yeah.
Because I always did the basics and it always works. Okay. If you start with the basics, but now people are looking for the most flashy or the most innovative techniques, and then that's it. They're gonna make their opinion on a small video of like 1 minute of that guy, and then okay, that's gonna be the next big thing. And you gotta be create some interesting stories in Instagram as well, and stories or whatever, and that's to have a big break or to be like important or to be successful now, which before was like with what you have done before, but now people don't really look into that, or it's the second thing they're gonna do. But again, it's like it's going more towards the online training now. And we know that online training usually it's like you have a few packages, but everybody gets the same program usually.
Yep.
And you go and it's like a big market, but not too much of a people to people business. It's like I don't really like online training. I have a few, but they go. Let's say I have a few from Cirque du Soleil that they travel all over the world now. It's starting again, but again, those guys, I'm gonna do it. But for anyone, I would prefer to train people one-on-one, like face to face, than doing them online. But I always did that before, so I don't like the aspect of what the pandemic did to shift everything online. And I don't want to talk about the metaverse because that's even worse. I'm not getting into that, but it's like
that's a 2-hour conversation at least.
Like everything's gonna be online. Everything has to be online. If you want to be successful, you got to think like for the future. It's okay. I think it's normal evolution, but for the fitness, I'm not like too keen to it.
Well, just to give you like a personal example, I reached out to you a while back and said, "Hey, what is your investment cost for like essentially online training?" And it was an acquaintance of mine that saw our podcast together, and I don't know if he had followed you or whatever. And when I gave him the price, he said, "Well, I can buy." I didn't tell you this, but he said, "Well, I can get this template that is done everything that I need, health, nutrition program for X amount of dollars. And I don't see why I would need it." And so like, I can't communicate with people like that who don't understand the value proposition over something, right? It's like, it's like you're buying gold versus fool's gold. There is absolutely 1000% difference between the two, but because you can't differentiate, and that's the other thing, it's like, okay, well, now people aren't getting educated enough. They're getting manipulated in a market where, social media is really just word of mouth. It is word of mouth online, and people have always been successful without advertising, and they're always going to continue to be successful without advertising. In the modern sense, just because I have a successful business doesn't mean I necessarily have to run TV ads, commercials, or radio ads or whatnot, right? This is 20 years ago. Same thing applies today. Now, it can help with the right strategy and market, blah, 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 blah. But if you build a book of business and you've been doing this for 30 years and you're well known in the industry and you've set yourself up, then you can continue to grow and succeed and blah, 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 blah. So, but I think the issue isn't so much in just the saturation. I think it's in the lack of information and the real education behind what is happening. And people have, look at us as human beings. Like, the reason why TikTok is successful is because they are microdose, little tiny, 20-second blurbs of videos. They've extended it to 3 minutes, but they're really quick, right? So it's like you get this stimulus,
is what most people's attention has.
Yeah. Just a quick dopamine hit and my attention span is done. I can't sit through something that is going to teach me something and I'm going to get better because I have the attention span of a hummingbird or whatever the case may be. Like it's pretty terrible. Wow. It's pretty terrible. And I think that's the cause and concern. Krystal, your thoughts? If you can pass, we can go to the next one.
No. I think I have just an interesting perspective or a different one, at least just from
we're old farts.
No, but even just growing up with my dad, when things started to transition media-wise and he realized that he needed to put so much more online, I remember how much he dreaded it. Because he's like, now it's like the people that would come to seminars and travel, it was the same principle we talked about earlier with the hard work aspect. He valued people who would take the time, money, all of that to actually learn from him and interact with coaches. Because I even know just attending some of his seminars or some of the seminars we have had, just interacting with the coaches and the students is so much more rewarding than anything I've seen online. And I think when you're specifically talking about the transition of the fitness industry to internet and social media and all of that, I notice a huge difference I think especially because I'm in the age range where most people start to get into fitness.
Yeah.
Like you're finally at a high school sports, all this stuff. And now you can kind of have the free time to discover fitness, or at least that's what I've noticed. And especially since my age group loves like TikTok, Instagram, all of that, all the fitness stuff is immediate pretty much. And you can become, you know, TikTok famous just by having a nice body and you post your workouts. And then all of a sudden you have a whole platform just because you have a good physique. Now, you could know all of these principles and all of this other stuff that gave you that, or you could just be genetically blessed and the workout program worked for you.
When you're 17 to 21 years old, it is highly unlikely. And that's the thing. It is highly unlikely, you know, and it goes back to like knowledge and expertise. Going back to your statement about like having to travel to go to these like keynotes, these seminars that he hosts. One thing I've seen someone, I think Christian has done this. Thib Army. I can't pronounce his last name. I don't want to butcher it, but Thibodeau, Thibodeau. He does some, you know, he'll do like these online seminars where you have to have an investment. I thought that was interesting because what people do in the high ticket space is that in the service industry, whether it be like generate business leads, sales, whatever, customers, or you want to learn a skill, they'll run a webinar, which is essentially like this, and they'll do it live, and then they'll sell like a high ticket thing. But now what they're doing, some of these smarter people are like, hey, you want to get this information for you to attend, because we have limited seats, just like a physical space. There's an investment, whether it be $100, $500, $1,000, doesn't matter. That's irrelevant, but they're utilizing this as an investment just to get people to understand that when they're there, they have to be there and they're willing to sit down and learn and whatnot. So that could be like the pivot that could alleviate some of these pain points that I'm seeing in the space, but it's so dramatic. Anyways, enough talking about that. I did want to.
No, but you know what? That's good, because that's exactly the point. There's some people that the coaches that they want to have the personal experience, like the one-on-one and live personal experience. So they're going to pay the extra amount to go there. And
you're buying access.
Now,
yeah,
exactly. And like you wouldn't get the same, even if you called Charles to get a consultation. It was expensive, but it was never going to be the same as if you're sitting down with him, and because Charles was like that. He felt how you were, and he was able to match the energy. And that's one thing that like I really respected of Charles, is that he was able to take the information and then give it to you the way you need it.
Yeah.
So maybe it was
I actually
advanced. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually noticed that on the Tim Ferriss podcast that he did with him. He did exactly what you just described. He matched his energy. And the other thing that I noticed is that when he's around an expert in their field, he completely honors and respects that. He doesn't try to take that away from them, which is so huge. How many people come into an interview thinking they're just hot shit? Hey, I'm Mr. Know-it-all. I know everything. I'm the bomb. I'm influencer person. You know, it doesn't matter what field of study they're in or expertise that they're in. So I totally agree with you. Speaking of the Tim Ferriss interview, at the time when podcasting was still as an infancy, that was one of the largest, most played, downloaded interviews of all time, like of all time. Like it's insane. And the fact that it was with a strength coach, which is very niche specific, you know what I mean? About the industry of health and fitness and nutrition. But like, again, your father, the way he articulates and his humor, his little, what I call like the little dark humor, which I share, because, you know, whatever. I find incredibly hilarious, incredibly entertaining. It's just, I wish he would have done more of these interviews, these podcasts. I wish podcasting was what it is now, you know, when he started, you know, maybe even 10, 15 years ago, because I think the world would have, you know, gained a more gained a better understanding and perspective of what real strength and fitness and nutrition really should be. Not to say that he was the pinnacle, but in my opinion, he was. Like, and I mean that. Krystal, I don't care if you're here or not. I'll block you out. I'm telling you. I think Charles Poliquin was the freaking man. And it's just sad I never had the opportunity to meet him, but so grateful that you're here and taking the time to do it. And so grateful for you, Eric, for being able to set this all up. Like when you texted me, I literally I ran to my wife. I'm like, honey, look, guess who I get to have? Charles Poliquin's daughter is going to be on my podcast with Eric. She's like, what? Who? Like Poliquin, you know? Oh yeah, that guy. I'm like, yeah. Oh my God. Okay, bye. So it's a big honor for me that you're here and that you're both taking the time to do it. So my next question to you about your dad, and either of you guys can answer this question. How long did it take him to get to the Charles Poliquin that everybody knew? Like how much study? Because all I heard and all I watched of him was essentially like beating science to the game, beating tests and studies to the game by actual application, like being in the field, which is so underrated. And I think people, you know, they take that for granted. They think if it's not researched and has been studied drastically, then it's not applicable or it cannot work. But that's what he was known for. I mean, he literally like created things before they were even created or tested and proven. So, like, what are your thoughts about that? Like, how long did it take him to get to that point?
Well, my dad, one of his biggest principles was that you could never stop learning. Like the whole time I was growing up, he was always learning something new or always reading something else. And it wasn't just from one specific field. And I think that's what helped with his just vast amount of knowledge is he wanted to produce the best results. And fitness isn't just limited down to like how much weight you can lift. Mm-hmm. Like he would study acupuncture. He would study just everything he could to have the best understanding of the human body. And then he would read psychology because that has a lot to do with how you train an athlete, all of this stuff. And then he just kept chasing the results. So with whatever new knowledge he learned, he would just try to think of how to apply it because everything and then if you think about studies, I mean, new studies are always coming out. Stuff that used to be the fact can change with new research, new results, all of that kind of stuff. And I think he carried that with him when it came to his own knowledge. He knew that he needed to keep it up to date and to keep growing, or else what was it worth? Yeah,
no, totally. Absolutely. I think he had this ability where it was like almost absurdly confident in his ability and in his knowledge and in his expertise, which I find so admirable. And people could look at it and be like, oh, he's just arrogant. He's not, because arrogance is talking the talk, but not being able to walk the walk. You know, it's not being able to back up the things that you're actually saying, doing, etc. So, what about you, Eric? Like, when do you think like what was the thing that really stuck out to you with Charles in respect to some of the modalities that he was able to apply, you know, early on, you know, prior to being verified by science and testing?
It's what I've learned the most, and what I still use with clients is his ability to read people. And like I said, matching the energy, but also while doing it, he learned a lot from how to deal with people as well. So I think that's why he was so successful and had results fast, is his ability to pinpoint like what aspect, what habit he could like tweak or change without much effort.
About the client or the athlete?
The client or athlete is the same, but as soon as he was trying to help someone, he was trying to find what's the most what would influence the most his results? By doing the least. So because most people want to have results fast, so what he wanted to do is to take someone, help them, but by tweaking what he knew was going to help the client or the athlete the most. So that's why all the evaluation that he did, like the CLAT test and all that, when we started, we did all the crazy evaluations before that, like the first one with the bench press, all the 1RM and all that. He tested it on us, like the strength coaches at the beginning. Like I think it was, at least 20 years ago. And when we started doing the protocols, he tested everyone on this. So he was fast to get all the data and all that. But when you went to see him or one of his coaches, our goal was to take the client, do a few tests, and start with what we knew was going to give us the most results. And I think that's why he was successful and he was so confident, because he was able to read the person in a matter of minutes. Like he was going to ask you a few questions and then after that, okay, let's do this. But he knew so much, like Krystal said, like he was reading so much, he was able to take the information and go right away to what he needed to take and what the client or the athlete needed to do. And that's why he got results fast. And that was the whole, I think one of his main goal was to get results fast, but that was, those results were lasting. Like it wasn't just a matter of a few months, they were lasting. People, like all the hockey players that he took, almost all of them went into strength coaching and coaching clients and coaching other hockey players, because the information that they got from Charles was so successful that when they told someone, they tried, got results right away. And just like that, just some simple tips like that. So that's why he knew so much that he was able to pinpoint the information right away, which was going to give the client or the athlete the best results and fast. And I think that's why I'm not that good, but I try to do the same thing.
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. That's it. But no, just to try and help them as fast as possible. But for example, I get a client and then I'm gonna do an evaluation. Like half of the evaluation is gonna be on nutrition, habits, and everything related to that. And the other half is gonna be on structural testing, structural balance, and all that. So with the nutrition and like the habits part, like I need 5-10 minutes and I know right away what I'm gonna do. The rest of the 30 minutes is gonna be on how can I make them understand and how I'm gonna be able to make them do it as like fast and understand what they're doing as well. Same thing for the structural balance in the gym and all the protocols after that. So I learned all that from there, and I think that's why we coaches, like everybody that went through Charles, learn this and try to apply the same when they're with their clients.
It's almost like reverse engineering psychology. Especially, what you said, Krystal, you said that you really study psychology, and like, he had this talk about the 5 elements, the fire, wood, earth, metal, water, which, I think Christian is kind of taking to, his level of things, which is calling neurological profile. But so I personally study a lot to do with the brain, only because I'm fascinated and I've had ADHD pretty much my whole life, and so I'm very dopamine driven, but I have very low dopamine levels, and so I find that very fascinating. Like when you're doing these like these interviews and whatnot, or when Charles was trying to identify this person, do you think he was essentially doing that? Like, oh, maybe this guy is more dopamine dominant or has less serotonin or GABA or whatever the case may be, like based on attention span and fidgetiness and comfort level and things like that. Do you think like he was literally doing like some nonverbal cues and some behavioral psychology just to a basic level, right? But if for him to have such an innate understanding of humans and being able to decipher and understand that so quickly, to be able to reverse engineer that and then essentially start with the thing that's going to work best for them, like there has to be some like that's mad intuition and science combined.
But also like a lot of experience as well, because like the amount of athletes that he had, he was able to take like he was able to get like the whole plethora of clients, and let's say on 100 he was able to put them in like let's say dopamine dominant, and like he was able to give you like names right away. Okay, this is that type, or he knew, like he was so fast. Memory, I don't think I knew someone that could beat him at that point.
Really? So like a photogenic memory?
He's like memory and just recalling like research where, okay, I saw that, like he came to the gym and we were talking about like Krystal, our kids and all that. And then we came into research on training and new stuff that's coming out. And then he like the name of the person who did the research with who and how and like everything related to that, he was able to do that. And it's like, it was like fast. If he didn't, it would bug him so much. Then I would receive a text like 2 hours later, that's the guy. And then, okay, that's it. So we knew like where to go. But it was incredible. His memory was like, and for a guy that read that much and was able to like differentiate that, like try to remember all that, he was able to do it. And it was very impressive.
Krystal, how much did your father read?
Well, he read a lot, but the thing is, I've never known anybody who can read as fast either as my dad. Like I'd ask him, to look over my paper or something, and I thought it would take him a lot longer, and he would just go, okay, well, this is what you need to like. It was like nothing to him. So I don't think he spent a good amount of time just because he was able to go through it so quickly. He
had this little technique that he talked about where he would read on a Kindle, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he would read like diagonal down so that he could read faster, is what he was trying to describe. Is that true?
I don't know. He never told me that, but
yeah, I remember he said something for an X, something like that.
Yeah, so that he can like go faster. He said ever since like the Kindles came out, he's like hyper productive or something.
No, for real.
I have a fun question. Okay. And whoever answer, both of you answer, but what do you think, Charles's, I guess his favorite program that he either adopted, created, modified, whatever the case, cluster sets, German volume training, the 5-8 method, contrast sets, whatever. I don't know. Like out of everything that he's done, I guess what was the thing that he really enjoyed the most that he was able to sustain and still found fulfillment in it?
Anything that has to do with arms.
I was just about to say, it has some bicep exercises with a giant thick handle. Oh man. Isn't it funny that like at the time where he was wanting to develop these just monstrous thick grip handles, and now we live in a world where it's just the norm. I mean, you could literally, like, that's just, you can buy it
when there's no thick grip in the gym, it's shit. So it's like, and there's a lot.
Yeah.
The dumbbells now are a bit thicker. Like he came out with that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a knurled axle bar, like an axle bar. It's really thick. So like being able to use, like, that's common. And I actually found it in a commercial gym too, and some other things, some other appendages. And also I've been noticing a lot of like grip attachments and things like that, which he was a huge advocate of. I mean, I've never seen your dad in person, but his forearms look like Popeyes. Like correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's Legendary.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, this is such a tangent, but you just reminded me because of his forearms. My dad was really big into pressure points along with martial arts just in general. But there's this one pressure point here, and it was always super hard to get to on him because of his forearms. Like I could never get to it.
Because they're so thick and has like levels.
Yeah. And I remember one time he took me out to breakfast before school, and his arms were just resting on the table. And I think I was around 11 or so. And I asked him, I was like, can you hit someone's pressure point? Like just hit it? And he's like, yeah, sure. I guess you can. And so I just reached over and I just slammed into his forearm. And I was so proud because he couldn't move it for about 10 minutes.
Oh my God,
so
that's good.
I'm pretty proud.
And the thing is that I'm sure he was proud too.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, she got me.
It was a little awkward for him, but yeah.
Did you get his dominant hand? You got his dominant hand. Oh yeah, so he couldn't eat for 10 minutes.
Yeah, he just had to rest there for a bit. But yeah, I mean, and then with the arm protocols that you guys were talking about, I was just thinking about his gym in the Springs we have here. All the dumbbells are those thick, but I remember when he first ordered them, he was so excited that he could finally get them the way he wanted with the thick grip. So it's definitely an accurate statement for sure.
Do you still have them? Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic.
I love them so much. I hate it when I have to go back to school because we don't have those kind of dumbbells. And I always notice such a difference in my strength when I go back.
Absolutely.
It's the worst.
For me, it's elbow pain. It's constant elbow pain with the thinner handles. I mean, I can't remember the last time that I actually even like bench pressed or overhead pressed with just a regular standard barbell. I'm either using like my cambered bar, which is about 2 inches thick, or my axle bar, only because it's more comfortable on my elbows. It's more comfortable on my shoulders, and all around it just feels good. I want to ask you a question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. If it's gonna make you sad, we'll cut this out. But I just wanted to know what. And again, you don't have to answer this question. But what are you gonna miss most about your dad?
Oh man. I think one thing I think a lot about now that I guess I miss the most is just how much I've grown and changed since his passing. And I think at the place I am now, what I miss about him the most is his knowledge. I think that's something I really took for granted as a kid, just because it wasn't something that I found necessary or even had interest in, just because it was his job. And I did think it was cool, but I didn't see the need for me to have it. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm older, I so badly wish I could just sit down with him and just talk about everything and actually soak it all in instead of, I think that's what I would guess I would miss the most, is just having a relationship with him outside of the father-daughter. Because I think as presented by all the people in his life and just his interaction with the industry as a whole, he connected with so many people. And I do have a unique perspective, like being his daughter, but I didn't really get to see that other side of him as much. And I think with age that would have changed.
Built a friendship outside of just the father-daughter role. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something I'm sometimes envious of when it comes to other people, is their stories that they share with me about him or whatever, just because it's not the same relationship. So why should I have the same stories? But I guess that's something.
Can I give you just one comment to what you're just saying? They may have had that side of him, but nobody had the side that you did. No one.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm not saying like, spouse or whatnot. I'm telling you the connection that a father has with their daughter is unbreakable. There's nothing like it. And he wouldn't trade anything. Like there's just, I'm speaking as a father, and like, this is all cool and having friends is great and those relationships are fun, but the power and the intimacy and the love and the connection is just, nobody's going to have that but you. Nobody.
Oh, well, thank you. That makes me feel better.
Absolutely. I go ahead, Eric. Did you have something to say? I just want to ask one more question. I know
I'm good.
We're running on time.
Can't top that. Like that was the best question. And
we'll end on the lighter term.
But like I said, like when Charles came at the gym, that we talked about our kids, and like I saw that side, because every time that we were in conferences, it was like all the jokes and all the dark humor and all that. Okay, so that's one side of Charles. But like when he came to my gym, like it's always quiet. It's like very chill, and he knew everyone there. But when he wanted to be quiet and just do a good workout, but no one's gonna come and bug him, he came to my gym, because there's other big gym in the Montreal area. And every time we went to another big gym, like every guy was like asking him questions, so it was so long for him to train. And he said, no, whatever. So he came to my gym. But every time we finished the workout, we were sitting at the front taking our shake, post-workout shake. But we always talked about
20,000 amino capsules.
Yeah, that's it. Still works. Yeah, I still do. But but every time we talked about the kids, especially for Krystal, how he saw you, it's like exactly what Mo said. It's exactly that. Like he changed completely. We were like so like I can't say it how he was talking about you. So yes, exactly like Mo said. Like there's nothing like that.
There really isn't. There really isn't. But Krystal, I want to end with this. What's going to happen? Like what's going to happen with your father's legacy? Where's your role in all of this? Are you wanting to have a role, or you just want to let it, kind of take its own shape? Like where do you see it going? Because I'm just really curious, and I've been so curious, and this is just a question for me personally. It's a selfish question.
I guess I just want to see where it goes. I think it's hard for me to give an exact answer just because his legacy is so different than it initially started. Like Strength Sensei, it has had to go a completely different direction since my dad, which obviously makes sense. But I just want it to keep growing. And I mean, we have an amazing team of coaches, and I think it could serve as a great education platform. And I really want people to just keep using it like that. And I think we've had to make adjustments because of COVID and just a bunch of things in navigating. Sorry, our garage is very loud. Navigating through all of that, I think, it's hard to give an exact answer because you never know how things are going to change and adapt. But I just am excited to see where it goes, and that hopefully it keeps growing. That's what I would like for it.
Are you involved in it at all?
I am. It's just I definitely took a back seat.
Yeah.
Because when my father passed, I was his only, kid. And so I got everything. And I was just so incredibly overwhelmed by having his company and everything that came with it. And just out of love for my dad, I had this fear that I would disappoint or I would let it down. And so I've taken that back seat because I just want the best for his legacy and for his company. And there's so many people that I've been so lucky to meet and work with. And Strength Sensei wouldn't be where it is without, everybody that's helped and come along my side. And it's because of my dad and the relationship with my dad and all of that. So I don't know, I guess I want to have a more active role. I think it's just me taking a second and separating my relationship with my dad a bit. And I think I've had a hard time with that for a while, like separating the business from my relationship with my father. So,
I mean, yeah, it's taking logic away from emotion. And when the two are fused together, it can be a little difficult. My last question is, prior to all of this happening with your father, for all the unknowns and everything, prior to all of that, when you're going to school, what were your aspirations? Like, what were you wanting to do in the first place? If you had any like clear set goals. I mean, I know that's your kids, like, nobody knows, but like, did you ever aspire to be in that lane that your father is in, that he created? Was that something that you were interested in, or were you shifted somewhere completely out, different?
Initially it wasn't my lane at all and not what I was interested in. And I think solely because it had been my whole life, because my mom is also involved in that industry. Yeah. And so everybody I knew and everyone I grew up around, that was everything. And I wanted to see, before everything, what else I was interested in. And I think also I felt that it was kind of hard to follow in my father's footsteps. So initially I had interest in cinema. We have changed. I have definitely changed. And now I'm studying psychology. And awesome. I have an interest in sports psychology specifically. Very cool. Very useful. I've found my way back.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I'm excited to see where you're going to go and where this is going to go and where you're going to be the next decade.
Yeah. So I do a lot of work. 10% of my work is with special forces. But for example, the Canadian Special Forces have actually espoused the paleo diet. They've cut their carbs, increased their protein. I'm going to tell you later why it's so important. But the first thing you should eat in the morning, as much as possible, should be raw meat.